In this video, I'm going to give you 8 takeaways from Panasonic's 2021 TV launch event, which was held online today, including a new, less expensive OLED range with the brighter Master Professional Custom OLED panel, as well as new gaming-friendly 48-inch models. Keep watching. Hello everyone, Vicentio from HDTVtest here. Takeaway number 1 is that Panasonic has launched 3 new OLED TV ranges to add to the company's flagship JZ1000 OLED, which the Japanese brand unveiled at CES back in January. So these 3 new Panasonic OLED ranges are going to be the JZ1500, the JZ1000, and also the JZ980. As for the differences between these model ranges, the JZ1000 will have a better OLED panel for higher performance and also additional contrast filter over the entry-level JZ980. And as for the difference between the JZ1500 and also the JZ1000, we will go to takeaway number 2, which is that Panasonic has this year decided to put their top-tier, brighter Master Professional Custom OLED panel onto the JZ1500 as well, because they have listened to feedback from customers who may have been interested in their JZ2000 and also the HZ2000 with this brighter Master Professional Custom OLED panel, but were put off by the additional speakers and upcharge that the company has put on the JZ2000 and also the HZ2000. So they have listened to the feedback of these potential customers and decided that they are going to roll out the brighter custom professional OLED panel onto the JZ1500 without the speaker frills on the JZ2000. So this will be good news for those of you who have been pining for Panasonic's brighter OLED panel but already have your own sound system or home theater solution and therefore do not need the additional up-firing speakers and also side-firing speakers on the JZ2000. And I think, hopefully this will bring the price down as well and make it more affordable for some of you who will be wanting the brighter OLED panel at maybe a more affordable price. This also means that Panasonic is going to be the only manufacturer that I'm aware of to be offering 2 ranges of OLEDs with the brighter OLED panel. This year, LG Display has come out with a brighter OLED panel as a result of 2 key advancements in their OLED manufacturing process. The first advancement is the addition of a new green emitting layer, and the second advancement is the substitution of the hydrogen material inside the OLED compound with deuterium. And the key thing about the JZ1500 is that there will be 3 screen sizes, which I probably should talk about in my next takeaway. So takeaway number 3 is that new for 2021, Panasonic has added a smaller 48-inch OLED size for the JZ980, for the JZ1000 and also the JZ1500. So I think from the point of view of their marketing this year, they are looking heavily towards gamers because they realize how big the gaming market is, and the 48-inch OLEDs will certainly go some way towards appealing to this demographic. And another thing that I probably need to mention is that if you want a 77-inch OLED TV from Panasonic this year, you're not going to get it because the largest screen size that the Japanese brand is going to be offering this year is still going to be capped at 65 inches for all 4 ranges, basically the JZ980, the JZ1000, the JZ1500, and also the JZ2000. They will all be available in 55-inch and 65-inch screen sizes, and the lower 3-tier models will get the 48-inch size. And this will also mean that the JZ1500 in terms of the 48-inch model won't be getting the brighter custom professional OLED panel, because I think from LG Display's point of view, they haven't started selling 48-inch OLED panels with this brighter, more efficient component yet. So I asked about the difference between the 48-inch JZ1000 and also the 48-inch 1500, and the key difference is going to be design. with the 48-inch models, they will mostly have a pair of feet that is probably quite narrow and is not placed right at both ends of the screen, as you have seen some other designs. But for the 48-inch JZ1500, it will have a more premium pedestal stand with a rectangular base, which will be more appealing to some of you design fashionistas out there. And in terms of the availability, I think the JZ1500 will also only be available in certain markets. We are still waiting to flesh out the details from Panasonic. And I have talked about how these 48-inch screen sizes will be more appealing to gamers. Next, let's talk about the fourth takeaway, which is HDMI 2.1. And Panasonic will be implementing two HDMI 2.1 ports on all these four OLED ranges. And because I believe that they will be using the MediaTek SoC, just like all other OLED brands on the market who are offering two HDMI 2.1 ports, I suspect that one of these HDMI 2.1 ports will also be the eARC port. So if you use eARC on the TV to pass through lossless audio, then you may only be left with one HDMI 2.1 port. And today, Panasonic has clarified, finally, that the HDMI 2.1 bandwidth on these HDMI 2.1 ports are going to be 40 gigabits per second rather than 48 gigabits per second. So 40 gigabits per second will allow you to achieve 4K at 120 frames per second at 10-bit 444 rather than 12-bit 444, which the 48 gigabits per second full bandwidth will allow you to achieve. But I don't think it is really that big a deal because, when you look at the HDMI 2.1 consumer source devices, let's say the PS5, they are currently only capped at 32 gigabits per second HDMI 2.1 bandwidth output. The Xbox Series X will be outputting a maximum of 40 gigabits per second, basically 10 gigs at 4-lane FRL. And obviously from the PC side, the RTX cards, they can output up to 48 gigabits per second. But again, I don't think it is a market that is that mature, and even LG, who have been the first on board to get onto the HDMI 2.1 bandwagon, they are only offering 40 gigabits per second HDMI 2.1 ports this year still. So I don't think it is as big a deal as some of you may want to make it out to be. And there is a slight caveat in terms of the 4K 120Hz support. So let me just say that the HDMI 2.1 ports on the Panasonic OLEDs will be supporting 4K 120Hz high frame rate, they will be supporting ALLM, and they will be supporting VRR, and they will even support AMD FreeSync Premium. But as part of their online presentation today, they were candid enough to admit that there is currently a problem with 4K 120Hz VRR in that, they can only output half vertical resolution at shipping, and the shipping is going to be maybe in June 2021 for these OLED models. And to me, this sounds suspiciously like the issue that I found on the Sony XH90 or X900H LED LCD TV last year. If you remember, after Sony added a firmware update to that TV, and people started noticing that 4K 120Hz, even in non-VRR mode, was slightly blurred. And I checked that the vertical resolution was actually halved. We were not getting the full 3840 x 2160 resolution in 4K 120Hz mode. So from that point of view, I think, this is a similar problem for Panasonic as well, maybe in terms of the MediaTek SoC used. But Panasonic did say that they are confident that they will be able to roll out a firmware update later this year, sometime in 2021, to fully fix this issue so that owners can get the full 4K resolution at 120Hz with VRR. So maybe that is a hopeful news even for, say, Sony XH90 or X900 owners out there. Maybe there is some light at the end of the tunnel after all, but I do not know whether Panasonic will be using part of their daughter picture processor chip to offload some of the processing and therefore be able to pass the full 4K resolution at 120 Hz, whereas with the Sony X900H, I know that the SoC is codenamed MT5895 inside the Sony system, but realistically it is the MediaTek S900 SoC, and any TVs that are using solely this MediaTek S900 SoC will be displaying this loss of resolution at 4K 120 Hz. So the Sony XH90 and X900H doesn't have a daughter companion chip, unlike the company's new Brava XR TVs this year, so I'm not entirely sure whether this is an issue that can be fixed totally. And the fifth takeaway is to do with input lag, and Panasonic actually went to the trouble to demonstrate the input lag on these Panasonic OLEDs, especially the 48-inch models, which they expect to be very popular with gamers out there. So they used an oscilloscope to demonstrate that with a 60 Hz video signal, the input lag is around 11, but once you engage VRR mode, the input lag will drop to 2.5 milliseconds, which is insanely low, even below the 120 frames per second input lag that I measured on LG OLEDs. So I think, I have to find some way to get my hands on a similar oscilloscope to try and do more testing, because I've been informed that the VRR input lag is always going to be lower than, say, a fixed 120 frames per second video signal, but I have no way to confirm, and I will try to find some way to replicate this result when I receive all these new TVs in for testing. And takeaway number 6 is the status of Disney Plus on these Panasonic TVs. Now, as you may or may not be aware, Panasonic TVs in 2019 and 2020 haven't received any update to add the Disney Plus app. And for the new 2021 models, what Panasonic is saying that they are still in discussion with Disney to add this app. And I think, this app is actually quite important, because I think after Netflix, it is the second largest streaming service. And I will tell you my personal experience of using last year's CX or C10 OLED from LG and also this year's LG G1. And between the remote control on the remote control of the 2021 set, there will be a dedicated Disney Plus hotkey that brings you directly to Disney Plus, whereas this button is actually not available on 2020 models, including the CX or GX. So that's the thing, for some reason, I find myself testing more Disney Plus content on various televisions, and whenever I need to access Disney Plus on the LG CX or C10 OLED, I never thought that I would miss a key more often than Madonna does. Takeaway number 7 is to do with the lack of mini LED TVs within Panasonic's 2021 lineup. Now, Panasonic also announced some LED LCDs today, but there will be no models with mini LED backlighting. And when we asked Panasonic about this, they were frank enough to say that they believe that OLED will still deliver the best picture quality among the consumer market today, and they don't see any need to try and use mini LED technology to add the number of local dimming zones on their LED LCD sets, because however many zones you add onto a mini LED TV, it will never beat the number of pixels that can be controlled individually on an OLED to give you true blacks, to give you that insanely high contrast, and to give you all the self-emissive goodness of wide viewing angles and near instantaneous pixel response time. And last but not least, takeaway number 8 is to do with 4K Blu-ray players from Panasonic this year. There will be no new 4K Blu-ray player launched from the company, but the company did state that they will refresh the Panasonic UB9000 with a new sound processor. And when we asked Panasonic about DVD audio and also SACD support, which was sorely missing on the UB9000, the company still said that the updated UB9000 won't be supporting these high-resolution audio formats. So overall, I'm quite excited about Panasonic's 2021 OLED TV lineup, and I think the one that attracts me the most will be the JZ1500, which is going to be offering the brighter OLED panel performance, but without hopefully the price tag of the flagship JZ2000. This will also mean that Panasonic is the only OLED brand I know this year that will be offering two ranges of OLED TVs with the brighter OLED panel, whereas LG and Sony will only be offering one brighter OLED range each. And hopefully this will also mean that if Panasonic priced the JZ1500 sensibly, because it doesn't come with the speaker frills of the JZ2000, that the JZ1500 will come below the price of the LG G1 and also the Sony A90J, giving more choice to consumers out there who can buy Panasonic TVs in your local market, of course. And to go with, the brighter OLED panel, what I have always liked about Panasonic OLEDs are their exemplary color accuracy, both out of the box and after calibration, and also their superb near black handling that generally delivers less chrominance overshoot and flashing artifacts near black than any other OLED brands until maybe this year, where they may face some competition from Sony. And to add to that, there will be lower input lag, VRR support, 4K 120Hz support, albeit only fully functional after firmware update. And I can't wait to get my hands on a review sample when they launch sometime in June this year. For more videos on 2021 televisions, I've created a playlist here if you'd like to click on it, and I will see you in the next video.